it makes clear that these superintendents are, we're in an untenable position. The parents are split 50-50, pro-mask, anti-mask, but we know what's right. We know we have to be pro-mask. We want a mandate. If only the governor would give us a mandate. And lo and behold, they did get a mandate. Even though the public had already said, no mandates. We passed a whole constitutional amendment so that you couldn't do this to us. So they did it anyway. I cannot imagine your frustration when they did it anyway.
Yes, it was very frustrating because last year, I put my children in this private school that followed the original guidance our health director put out in the summer of 2020, and it allowed for children to not wear masks. So my children didn't have to wear masks in private school. And the private school, it was totally fine. Nothing happened. So after I wanted to put my kids back into the public schools because I moved here for the public schools and everything was supposed to be okay. And then they voted then the mask mandate came back and school already started in Bucks County. We were already in school for a week. And then they put the mask mandate back in.
That's one of the frustrating things about this is that the ones who are so obsessed with the masking refuse to look at the jurisdictions that haven't required masking for honest feedback about whether the masking is doing any good whatsoever, which brings me, again, we're going to get to the lawsuits in a second. But that brings me to you, Jarrett. So you're a dad in a different district. And how old are your kids?
I have well, thanks again for having us on. I really appreciate the opportunity to share our story, which is something that's resonating, with everyone. It's not just unique to us. Everyone's fighting this. I have a 3.5-year-old son and a 1.5-year-old daughter who will be going to this school district if they can get their act together. But if they continue to act the way they're doing, I'll be sending my kids other places, and I'll be, recommending that others do the same.
So you start showing up at the school board meetings as a tax-paying citizen who's got 2 young kids headed for this district. And what was your frustration when you saw the way these things were being run?
Yeah, my frustration was immediately, and before I say anything, I'm supposed to make it very clear to you and to your listeners that everything I say today is only a reflection of my own beliefs and not that of Parkland School District. They're very, well, let's just say that. I think what became clear to me as a taxpayer and as a parent, when you would go to these board meetings and you'd approach the board, your place to air your grievance or your concerns, the board would look at you. They'd apparently hear what you say, but they wouldn't even provide comment. They wouldn't even reply to parents. They just stared at you almost as if they're looking right through you. And so can I tell you the satisfaction that I have been given now, where they can no longer look, down and through me. Instead, they're now looking across the stage at me. And now they're forced to hear the community. It's apparent that these boards have become complete rubber stamps for the administration. And if that's the case, I'm not even really sure why we have a board to begin with.
So how many members are on the board? So you decided to run for school board. You got on the school board. So yay, you're newly elected. How long have you been elected and going to the board meetings for?
So I was elected in the past fall here in the November election. There were some issues about challenge in the area. That's another story. And so my seating actually as a board member was delayed, which is just hilarious. But I was finally sat later in December into January. And so now sitting on the board
I'm sure your fellow board members are like, how the hell did he get on? Why would the voters
and it's amazing.
Jarrett on?
And Megyn, that's the thing. They don't get it. They're completely amazed. And it's that's the thing. It's not just I have these feelings. It's everyone. It's everyone out there has the same thoughts, and the numbers show it. When people go to the polls, people are upset with what's going on. They're sick and tired of being gaslighted, and it just continues. And until we take back the boards, flip the balance, and retake our schools, this is going to be a struggle everywhere.
So how many people are on the board?
We have a 9-person board.
And how many people are on your side?
I'm the one on my side.
It's 8 to 1.
About 9,000 community members, I'd say. Yes.
Wow. Okay. So in the community, I mean, I imagine that the politics are reflected in the community, that it is majority Democrat, which tends to mean, well, not so much anymore, but sort of far left Democrat, which means pro-mask mandate for the most part.
Yeah. And I mean, it's a vocal minority that show up with fears that all the children are going to die from COVID. Just they're very vocal, and they're against mask optional policies in the area. But look, I mean, now we know the data, that the science doesn't support their argument. It's falling apart now. And yet they still cling out of this fear or this obsession with this virus and with these masking policies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've seen it. We love David Zweig, who's written great pieces for New York Magazine. I'm sure you guys have seen him in The Atlantic, taking a hard look at these so-called studies that they claim support the masking of children. And he's just completely debunked them. I mean, it's junk. And the biggest one, which I know, Jarrett, you mentioned when you went off at the school board meeting, was by the CDC in Georgia, that showed of 90,000 children that the masks do nothing. They do nothing. And the CDC turned around and promptly began ignoring that in favor of these other BS studies that they claim support masks, but in fact do not. So, and by the way, now he's getting hit by some left-wing publication that nobody reads, and I choose not to publicize here, because they're sad. These crazy mask enthusiasts, again, they're sad that their masks are going away. And so they want to lash out at anybody who's starting to sort of win this battle, namely the children. It's the children.
Exactly.
It's not because of you. Exactly. It's not because of David Zweig. Exactly. It's because the children need to have this garment taken off of their damn faces so that they can learn properly.
Right. And I think you bring up a great point. Look, I'm an airline pilot by trade. I'm often put into situations where I may not know the right answer, and I start determining the right answer by making my team bigger and relying on experts. And as we started I had doctors in the area sending me these studies showing the lack of statistical probability that was significant that these cloth masks actually do something. And when presented with this data, just a continual stonewall again. Look, if we're not making the children wear hospital grade respirators, we're not making them wear N95 masks. We're talking about cloth masks that are not fitted. The N95 masks are not, there's no one from OSHA sitting there fitting these on the children's faces. If the data supported masking, we wouldn't be having this discussion, but we have to follow the science. It is time that we follow the science, and it's about time we move on from this.
Okay, so you're sort of fighting it on the political front. Like, I'm going to get on that school board. I'm going to try to change policy. And Jamie's a mom who's trying to fight it from the parent level, trying to convince school boards and everybody around her to unmask the children and do what she has to do to move the kids, do whatever you have to do to save the kids. And Chad, you're a lawyer who's been, sort of the legal muscle trying to help out too. All these things are important in the fight. But before we get to the ADA lawsuits, which, you're on the opposite side of these, but on the ADA, before we get to that, so we're at the point in the story where we've sort of tried to defang the governor and his ability to just, through emergency powers, by edict, impose masks. Okay, successful. Then you get the local, health commissioner, at least in Jamie's district, to say, we don't need the masks. The case numbers are low, in August. Masks optional. Okay. And he gets overruled by the state, basically the governor's shill, who says, no, we're doing a mandate. Notwithstanding the fact that we have no emergency powers, we're doing a mandate. So now we're one step forward, two steps back. And then a lawsuit was filed. And Chad, why don't you tell us what the court, was it the Pennsylvania Supreme Court that ultimately ruled on this?
It was, Megyn. And just to take a step back for a second, over the summer, every school district was making its own independent decisions about, what they wanted to do with respect to masking. And they heard, as you might imagine, loud and clear from parents on both sides of the issues. Thomas Jefferson once said that the government closest to the people serves the people best. And you had independent political subdivisions making decisions about what to do with masking. And the governor came in and said, I don't like those decisions they made. So we're going to issue an edict that required masking in all public and private schools within Pennsylvania. So we brought an action with a number of folks to challenge the governor's authority to issue this mask mandate because we believed it was outside the statutory authority put forth in Pennsylvania law and regulations. We argued the case in front of the Commonwealth Court, which is a statewide court here in Pennsylvania, won the case, and then it was appealed to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court agreed with our position as well. So that's the highest court in Pennsylvania. And so currently the law of the land is that the Secretary of Health and the governor do not have the ability to issue a mask mandate outside of a disaster declaration.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.